Good morning, poultry keepers. You know, I've got a question for you. Have you been thinking about maybe adding quail to your poultry flock? I know some of you have because I've seen you posting, but they are an inexpensive bird to raise and they produce a great source of protein at an amazingly fast rate. It blows my mind sometimes. And coming up in this show, Rebecca Lynch is going to be sharing with us about Coturnix Quail, and Rebecca is from Thieving Otter Farm up in Tennessee. So right after this, we'll start talking with Rebecca. How about we start with you telling us a little bit how you got into quail, and we'll just go from there talking about them.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Rip. I got into quail completely by accident. I had a friend who had two sizes of quail. She had jumbo and standard, and she decided she just wanted to focus on jumbo and asked if I wanted her standards. And I had honestly never considered quail, never thought about quail, didn't even know how to pronounce Coturnix. So she said, look, I'll give you the birds, just pay $40 for the cage. And I thought, well, if I don't like them, I guess we can eat them. So
that's a deal. I like that.
Yeah. So I got some, and they were all the standard brown color. Shortly after I got them, I realized that these are really cool birds and that I really liked them. And then I discovered that there were different colors and different patterns and different sizes. And I fell down a rabbit hole, and I have been obsessed ever since.
You know, that's what amazes me. I had them years ago when I was younger, and I loved the birds, but you had two choices. Well, really, you had a little bit more than that. But color-wise, you could have either the wild color, or you could have white, and
Right.
you could get them in standard size or jumbo. And that was pretty much it. And then looking at some of the photos that we're going to be sharing with the folks today, it has blown my mind that we now have Bantam Coturnix Quail and standards and jumbos, and then a whole raft of colors. So
yes. It's amazing. You know, since those original quail were in circulation, there have been some mutations that have occurred and that have allowed us to have all different patterns and colors. So, and most of those patterns and colors are compatible with each other. So there's so many different combinations to make, you know, something new and beautiful. So this picture here I borrowed from Michael Rose at Southwest Game Birds. And this shows the three different size of Coturnix quail that are available right now. Well, I should say three different sizes that could be available, but Bantam is not really in circulation. So you see a lot of jumbo. Jumbo is most popular. People want jumbos because obviously they're bigger. If you're raising them for meat, that would be a better sized bird. And then there's quite a few standards in circulation as well.
amazing.
Yeah. I've got a little video here to show kind of some of the variations, just a few of what is available out there.
Those were amazing. I got to be honest with you, and I don't think it was in this slide presentation, but you had sort of what I thought was a buff color, And I asked you about it, and you said it was a blue fawn, which is the name of a color pattern in call ducks. And that bird was beautiful. I never thought I'd say that about a Coturnix quail being beautiful, but it was just absolutely stunning.
Thank you. Yeah, I take a lot of pride in my birds. And that's another reason why I really got into quail. I'll go into a little bit more detail in a little bit, but I had gotten into chicken breeding, and it takes so long for a chicken to mature. So, it can take a couple of years before you get a new generation, but quail mature so quickly. I can get several generations in 1 year.
Yes.
So it was fun for me to work with my breeding programs and practice those with these birds.
How long does it take for quail to mature? I think I know, but I'm not going to trust my brain this morning.
Yeah, it's amazing. So an egg hatches in 17 to 18 days. The bird will be laying, after hatching, will be laying in 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
My mind is boggled by how fast and how many generations you can turn these things over.
I know a chicken isn't even fully feathered out in 6 weeks, and these birds are feathered and laying. It's amazing.
You said they're not fully feathered. My Rhode Island red males weren't fully feathered for about 10 months, and by then you got a whole couple of 3 generations of quail on the ground.
Absolutely. A lot of people ask why quail. Why would I want to bring these birds onto my farm? They're great little birds. They can be kept in a small area. So if you're thinking about getting into quail, but don't have a lot of room, this is a great bird. They're great for urban homesteads. There's a lot of people that would like to have chickens, but they can't have them because they live in the city and the neighbors will get mad or whatever. But they don't take up much space. They don't make much noise. They don't eat a whole lot of feed. If you garden, they provide compost material. The eggs are fantastic. They're a lot smaller than a chicken egg. You need maybe, 3 of them to equal a chicken egg. But I actually like the taste better than a chicken egg. It's real rich. We'll take the time to make a full breakfast out of quail eggs. And they make little scissors to make it easier to break the shells. Yeah, there's a good picture of them there. Compared to the chicken eggs. And the birds themselves are really tasty. They're easy to process. I can process a quail in about 2 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. And wrap them with bacon, stuff them with cream cheese, and pop them in the oven or a smoker, and they're amazing. So you need to eat a couple of them, or maybe 3 if you're raising standards like I do. But they're good. And since they do reproduce so fast, you can cull your males and eat those and save the females for egg production and have a pretty good supply of food handy on a regular basis.
I tell you what, I've got a recipe for quail and peach brandy sauce.
Ooh.
That was, I shouldn't say was, it is really good. I used it frequently when I was out quail hunting. But you talked about space. How much space does it take, let's say, for a jumbo quail? How big
it varies. And kind of the rule of thumb is anywhere from 3 birds per square foot to a bird per square foot. And the reason why it varies is it depends on, like you said, the size of the bird. You asked about jumbo. But also where you get your birds from. If the breeder has bred for temperament and has culled aggressive birds, then you can keep more birds in a smaller area. But these birds are known for being kind of mean to each other. But I guess anybody in Poultry Keepers 360 is used to chickens kind of being jerks too.
Yeah. I know that when I was raising them, some of them could get a little feisty.
Yes, but you can breed for that. You can breed for that. Quail are known for scalping each other. They'll go for the back of the head, and they can do a lot of damage. But the great thing about quail is they heal extremely fast. So if you take that scalp bird and you set it by itself, you don't even really have to doctor it or anything. Just set it by itself, allow it to heal. As soon as those feathers grow back in about a week or 10 days, you can put it right back in, and everything will be fine. My goal is to look for the bird with blood on its beak. Who did the scalping, and remove that bird from the breeding program. And within a couple of generations, you can just about eliminate that aggression.
You had a picture of the eggs up there, the chicken eggs in comparison to quail eggs. And we even have quail now that lay a different colored egg, is my understanding.
Yes, yeah.
So for the folks who are into different colors in the egg baskets, quail can meet that bill very well. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a gene that has, it was a mutation that popped up that allowed quail to lay blue eggs. So if you have that gene in your covey, you can get some beautiful blue eggs. Some are solid blue, some are blue with black speckles. And then if you start combining those genes with the regular quail gene, you can see the array of colors that you can get there. So yeah, the eggs themselves, even the regular quail eggs, are really pretty with their spots and speckles. Yeah, and I think I had a picture in there as well of the quail growth. I had a picture of 3 quail. So that first chick in the front there is a new hatch chick. The one behind it is 10 days old.
Oh my gosh!
And the one in the background is 21 days. So you can see, yeah, that middle chick is, at 10 days old is really only lacking head feathers. So it is absolutely amazing how fast those grow.
As a general rule, how flighty are quail? Are they nervous birds, or?
The jumbos, and again, like you said, how they're bred and raised and selected for plays a big role. But the jumbos tend to be less flighty. The smaller you get, the more flighty they are. So I have not had experience with the bantams myself, but in speaking to a bantam breeder, they're extremely flighty. You might as well have a wild sparrow in your hand. I raise the standards. And when you first pick them up, they're flapping around trying to get away, but they settle down fairly quickly. And I can, you saw in the video those pictures of quail. I just set them on a retaining wall and took those pictures, and they just stood there and looked around. So that's not to say that I haven't had a quail fly away and haven't had to chase it.
We won't talk about that.
Yeah, but the nice thing about them, when they do fly, they tend to fly up and then fly a few feet and land. They flush like what I hear Bob White does. So they fly straight up and then they land, and then they kind of hide and hunker down. And if you're lucky, you can catch them at that point. Otherwise, it's going to be like in the Peanuts where they kept, hitting the hat, and it would go forward every time they went to go grab it. So, we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about their cage setup, but that is something that you have to keep in mind, because they do fly straight up and they fly up very fast. And they're known for, they're a really, really hardy bird, and they don't have a lot of diseases and stuff, but they will die from, flying up quickly and whacking their heads on in a cage that is of improper size.
I have experienced that.
Yep, absolutely. I think I have a video of some of my quail chicks. I'll show you what they look like as a new hatch chick. They come out of the shell. It's like popcorn. They pop out of the shell and they hit the ground running. And this video that I have here is of them still in the hatch. And this is not sped up. So you can tell that they're a very active and vigorous chick. They all hatch at about the same time, and it is like popcorn. You'll have a couple that hatch a little early, and then they all explode, and then there's a couple that hatch a little late. But it's amazing. Once they get to hatching, they mean business.
Doesn't take them long, that's for sure.
Yeah.
They're very different from poultry in that, or chickens
Mhm.
in that respect. But tell us a little bit, if you would, about raising quail, and is it, and how, I won't say is it, but how it's different from raising chickens.
Um, well, as mentioned before, you don't need a lot of space or anything like that. And it's nice. I like raising them as far as my brooder setup. I can get through a bunch of birds and have brooder space available. Since they're not in there for very long, I can get them outside super fast. So, I've got some chicks downstairs in my brooder pens that, goodness, they're going to be in there for a few more weeks, and in a few weeks, my quail are almost fully grown. So,
How long do they need to be in a brooder before you move them up?
depends on the temperature outside, but generally they're off heat within a couple of weeks. And then you can move them outside. I usually keep mine off heat in the house for another week or so. And once they get all their head feathers, I move them outside. So it's generally about 4 to 5 weeks. You can put them outside unless it's the dead of winter. Yeah, they don't need as much feed. They do need a higher protein level feed than chickens do, especially when they're growing. You want to have them on a 28 or 30% game bird feed.
Mm-hmm.
As they're growing, since they do grow so fast, they're gonna require a little bit more nutrition. I supplement mine with the Fertrell's Poultry Show and breeder supplement.
Mm.
And that gives them some added amino acids and vitamins. And then after that, you can actually feed them a layer crumble, a chicken layer crumble. If you want a little bit larger sized eggs, you can add in some additional protein, some more of that game bird starter, or like a flock raiser or something, just to boost the protein levels up a little bit, and that'll give you a little bit larger egg.
I know with bobwhite quail, you needed to use a special water fount top that was very narrow to keep them from drowning. Are Coturnix prone to that as well?
Absolutely. As a baby chick, it's very easy for them to fall into a chicken-sized water. So with this setup here, I've got a small little quail-sized water there that they can't get into and get wet or drowned. And then I also leave their food on a tray when they first hatch, so it's easier for them to find it.
Mm. It's a good point. And that's just a regular galvanized wash tub, right?
Yeah. Nothing. It didn't need anything fancy. You could use a tub like that, or you could use a plastic tote or something. I like to start them out in something pretty small, so it's easy for them to find their food and water. And after a few days, they're already a pretty good size, and I can move them either to like a stock tank with some heat plates, or I've got a GQF brooder setup that I can use. Cool. And that's pretty handy.
The one thing that I really struggled with, especially with white birds, which I never seemed to get right, was how do you sex them? I know that the standard Pharaoh, or what I would call wild type, which is probably not correct, sorry, you can sex them by color because there's a difference in the color of the breast of the females and the males. But I would be lost on some of these new solid colors. I wouldn't know where to start.
So this is the Pharaoh that you were talking about. It is also called wild type, so you were absolutely correct. You can see the male on top has a solid breast without those speckles that the female has. Mm-hmm. So in this picture here, you can see the male on top has a solid breast that's reddish in color and lacks the speckles that female has. He also has a chin strap, a white and black chin strap that is easier to pick out than on that female there. So you can tell those apart pretty easy. And Rip, you are absolutely right. These are Pharaoh. they're also called wild type. So I actually have a little video here to answer your question about how to sex them if they aren't feather sexable like that Pharaoh is. There are a few different color varieties that you can sex based on their color and pattern. But otherwise, you have to vent sex them. So you wait till they're sexually mature, and then you can actually flip them over and look at their vent and be able to tell very easily, as you can see in this video here.
Okay, today we're going to talk about how to vent sex a Coturnix quail. And so this one is a boy. And I'm going to flip him over, and he's going to struggle for a second. So if you look at a boy, look at their vent. They've got a bulbous area, this area right here. And you can even see it from the side. Not a lot of feathers, and it's really poofy. If you look at it, the vent opening is fairly small. It's not as big as you will see in a second on a hen. And the way you can really tell a male from a adult female is if you squeeze it, you're going to get foam. Okay, so that is how you can tell a male. Let me grab a female. So, this little girly here, her vent is much wider, fleshier. It's bigger to allow that egg to pass through. And you'll see it almost looks bruised looking around here. It's kind of a bluish purple color. And very obviously there is no foam up here. There's no bulbous area. Just a wide fleshy area for the egg. And that is how you vent sex a Coturnix quail.
You know, I wish I had known that 50 years ago.
Would have made it easier than waiting for them to lay.
Okay, we've talked about hatching quail, we've talked about brooding quail, and these little rascals grow so fast. We need to talk about adult housing at this point, because we're going to have all these birds that are starting to lay. And
you know, you actually have a lot of different options, Rip. I because of the way my business runs and I sell hatching eggs, I use a battery style setup. So these have rollout trays, so the eggs stay nice and clean. I can keep the birds separate by their color and pattern. And, you know, super easy to be able to clean the cages with some, you know, trays to be able to remove the manure. You can also keep them in kind of a rabbit hutch style cage. You just want to make sure that with whatever cage you select, that it's no more than 12 inches, 10 inches high, you know, 8 to 10 inches high is best. For exactly that reason what we talked about earlier, when a quail flushes and flies straight up in the air, if it's only 8 to 10 inches high, they don't have enough room to get up a lot of speed and really hurt themselves. So we like to keep it nice and short or really tall. You know, I've kept my birds in an aviary style setting on the ground. And as long as your roof is 6 feet high or more, or, you know, made of a material that they can kind of bounce off of, like the wire and tarps here, then you're okay. And so I use this aviary type setting for a grow out pen.
I really like that setup.
Yeah, it's really nice. I can grow these birds out, you know, for myself. I've got some of my breeders tagged, and I can sit on a bucket and watch them run around and be able to select breeders, or, you know, grow them out for somebody else. I will say in this kind of setting, it's a little harder to find the eggs if you're raising them for eggs.
I can see where it would be.
But I have heard that if you use a black light, the eggs glow pink if you look for them in the dark. So either that, or you can keep your kids busy for a while looking for eggs.
Year-round Easter egg hunt. I love it.
Exactly, exactly.
How big is that cage there? The aviary.
That is a 10 by 20.
And so, how many birds can you keep in them?
I usually keep about 200 at a time in there. Now those are I can keep a little bit more birds in there at a time because those birds are sold before they reach full, maturity and would start fighting with each other or anything like that. So if I were to keep them in there permanently, I'd want to provide some places for them to hide. Quail like things like overturned pots to be able to hide in, or you can make little houses and stuff. They like little places for them to go in and get away from other birds a little bit. So if you were going to keep them in that permanently, you could provide some of those things for them.
What about shelter from weather conditions? What do they need?
Mm-hmm.
Particularly wind and rain and cold weather.
That is exactly it. They need shelter from wind and rain. As long as you have that, you don't have to provide supplemental heating unless you're really in a cold area. Here in Tennessee, we get down to freezing, sometimes a little below freezing. And I don't supplement my birds with anything as long as they're fully grown. I just wait for them to be fully grown before I put them outside. But other than that, protect them. They're like a chicken. Protect them from wind and rain, and you're good.
When we talk about breeding, I know for best egg production, chickens need supplemental light. What about quail?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is one thing about quail. They need about 14 hours of light a day to produce eggs. So if you want them to produce during the winter, you're definitely going to need supplemental light, and you don't need much. Some people just use some Christmas lights. They get some white Christmas lights and hang them on the cage, and that is enough to get them to produce through the winter.
And a question I know is probably on a lot of our viewers' minds: can I keep quail with my chickens? Can you mingle them together?
The answer is it depends. It depends on your chickens. I have 4 breeder pens, and 3 out of 4 of those pens can house quail with my chickens. That 4th pen, those chickens, they're going to pick on those quail and kill them. But the other ones are pretty docile birds that wouldn't mind at all. I'm sure you could probably keep them with silkies, no problem.
Yeah.
But if you got some more aggressive chickens, it might be a little harder. The other thing to think about is being much smaller. Quail can fall prey to predators that wouldn't necessarily hurt a chicken. So you really have to look at, if you're wanting to keep them together, is your chicken coop secure against rats and snakes? So you've probably already got it secure against, raccoons and foxes, but you really want to use hardware cloth and maybe some tin, something like that to keep your quail safe from those other predators.
Going back to your aviary, I noticed you had the tin around the bottom, and I'm assuming that's like 2 foot 10.
Yes. Yeah. I actually have a hardware cloth skirt around that aviary. So if a predator starts to dig, they're going to hit the hardware cloth on the outside. And I used 4-foot hardware cloth and ran 2 feet on the outside on the ground and 2 feet up the side of that aviary. And then I use that tin around it as well. And that tin, one, it helps predator proof it. Just one added layer, but it also, for me, I feel like if predators can't see the birds, they're less likely to try to get in there. And if a fox were to run by, it's not going to startle those birds and get them flying and really get that fox interested. So that does help. I don't know that, you would have to have it for the quail. It's just an added layer of protection for my peace of mind. And
that can mean a lot sometimes. Gosh, we've covered a lot of ground, but I know that the folks viewing will probably have some questions. And if you do, please message us or make a comment when we post this video. Let us know what your question is, and we will see if we can't get Rebecca back to really get into detail. Personally, I want to learn more about the different colors. Rebecca, I appreciate you sharing with us. We covered you make great points about quail. And folks, if you want to learn more about poultry nutrition, I would encourage you to watch this next video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.